When people talk about Japanese wrestling, the main company you will hear people mention is New Japan Pro Wrestling. But about 15 years ago, it would have been Pro Wrestling Noah, thanks to their partnerships with the WLW and Ring of Honor at that time frame. The 2000s would see the birth, rise, and decline of one of Japan's most influential wrestling programs. Let's embark on the arc. The birth of Noah can be traced sadly with a death. On January 31st, 1999, Giant Baba, the founder and owner of All Japan Pro Wrestling, died, leaving his widowed wife, Motoko, to run All Japan. But she had some help. With her was newly made company president Mitsuharu Misawa. Misawa was the ace of All Japan at the time, and during the 90s, All Japan was at its height with Misawa and 3 other wrestlers in a planned 4 pillars booking style made by Baba: Mitsuharu Misawa, Toshiaki Kawada, Akira Taue, and Kenta Kobashi. Baba planned to run All Japan with these 4 as the stars of the company. There was a flaw, however. What about after they age or get worn down? What of the 2000s? There were foreign wrestlers like Stan Hansen and Steve Williams that were stars, but for native talent, the only one that had potential was Jun Akiyama. The rest floundered in the mid-card. Misawa's first plan as president was to help prepare Akiyama's path as a pillar. That plan, like many others he had, was delayed. Mrs. Baba was very conservative when it came to wrestling. She didn't want to expand or adapt to the new directions going on in the wrestling world at the time. Misawa wanted to take a company that had the same atmosphere since 1972 to a new horizon. He wanted it to be prepared for the 21st century. He had no choice. He had to leave. On May 28, 2000, Misawa was removed from his position by majority vote of All Japan's executive board. It was an unpopular decision for the wrestlers, and it also did not help that contract renewals in All Japan were done in mid-June. 2 weeks after Misawa's removal, All Japan's board meeting saw 5 board members resign: co-vice president Mitsuo Momota, chairman Akira Taue, and directory members Kenta Kobashi, Kanichi Oyagi, and Yoshihiro Momota. The next day, Mrs. Baba released a 2-page written statement claiming Misawa took no responsibility and abandoned his duty. The statement, most likely made to persuade the All Japan wrestlers siding with Misawa to stay with All Japan. But it was all for naught. The only wrestlers to re-sign their contracts to stay in All Japan were the wrestlers Mrs. Baba mentioned in the statement that were rumored to stay to keep Giant Baba's wish to keep All Japan alive: Masanobu Fuchi and Toshiaki Kawada. Many of the foreign wrestlers, such as Stan Hansen, would actually stay with All Japan, and part-timers such as Hiroshi Hase would remain in All Japan too, thankfully. Misawa would have a press conference in front of 100 reporters and photographers. He announced that this new promotion that he would lead would have its first show in August at the Differ Ariake, and answered many questions about how he's indebted to Giant Baba and wishes Kawada to do well in his decision with All Japan. The following day, he officially named the company Pro Wrestling Noah, a reference to the story of Noah, who built an ark and put 2 of every animal in the world on it before God destroyed the world by flooding it, and to start the world anew. Nippon TV, the television network that was with All Japan since its foundation in '72, cut ties to join Noah. August was approaching, and Misawa had a roster, a television deal, and even a headquarters. The Japanese wrestling fandom awaited for Noah's first show, but how will it go? The tickets for Noah's first show sold quickly, and the anticipation was so high, there were reports of scalpers selling tickets for nearly $1,000 American at the time. A follow-up show was planned the following day too, and that also sold out. The very first show, Departure, was a hit. The wrestling was still the same style fans were accustomed to, but the atmosphere and production were jaw-dropping in comparison to All Japan. The television showed modern graphics for the logos. The ring entrances were more elaborate and gave the wrestler a character. The resolution of the cameras to accent the pageantry made it must-watch TV. The first show's main event featured Misawa and Taue facing Akiyama and Kobashi in a 2 out of 3 falls tag team match. Akiyama shocked the crowd by winning both falls for his team. Akiyama and Kobashi would break up after the match and have their showdown announced for the next show. In an amazing match, Akiyama pulled the upset and beat Kobashi by referee stoppage, cementing himself in just 2 shows as the ace of pro wrestling Noah. Noah would later on in the year begin their first tour, which would be titled Exceeding Our Dreams. Every show in the tour sold out, with the feat of selling out the Manase Village Tokuton Yama camp, a building that could hold over 6,000 people. In October, Noah introduced their first foreign wrestlers, the nephew of Terry Gordy and All Japan opening act for many years, Richard Slinger, high-flying wrestling pioneer and ECW, WCW, and WWF alumni, 2 Cold Scorpio, and a former IWGP Heavyweight and All Japan Triple Crown champion, Vader. Before this announcement, there was speculation if Noah would even have foreign wrestlers. Some people even joked that the Noah was an acronym for No Americans Here. December would feature Noah's largest event to date at the Ariake Coliseum, and 2 major events happened. In the mid-card match featuring Takawa Omori and recently made freelancer Shinya Hashimoto, Omori would call for the finish too early in the match, giving the crowd a 6-minute bout. The crowd went from being wild to being perplexed at how quick the match was. And in the main event, Kobashi avenged his loss against Akiyama from earlier in the year in what is undoubtedly the match of the year for Noah in the year 2000. Overall, 2000 was a success for the new promotion, but 2001 would start with some inconveniences. 2001 was a rough start for Noah. Kobashi blew his knees out in just a few weeks in, and MTV's TV broadcast for Noah was switched to the late nights. This issue would affect Akiyama's status as ace due to the lack of viewers, and Misawa needed to pass the torch. Already at this point, he was banged up and had to wrestle through aches and minor injuries. From the crowd reactions and responses, he had Takeshi Morishima, who was inconsistent with the crowds, Takeshi Rikio, who was an underdog but was still green. Yoshihiro Takayama was dominant thanks to his tag team bouts, but was beginning to concentrate more on fighting for pride than he was to wrestle. And then there was the aging Vader, who had legitimacy and prestige. Misawa, though, in the end of these choices, did what he criticized Mrs. Baba for, and played it safe. Misawa would announce a 16-man tournament to determine the first World Heavyweight Champion, the Global Honored Crown, or GHC Heavyweight Champion. The most notable match before the finals was Misawa shocking everyone and rolling up Jun Akiyama. Akiyama, in interviews after the match, said he would not forget this moment and use it to prepare for a future match to show that it was a fluke that happened. In the finals at a sold-out Ariake Coliseum, Misawa beat Takayama in a 20-minute epic. Misawa won the tournament to give the belt prestige, with the hopes that the successor would get the nudge to get the attention to have a legitimate ace. The experiment would be tested when Misawa lost to Akiyama in their tournament rematch 3 months later. Akiyama's reign did little to help, and the TV time slot stayed the same. 2 other titles were introduced this year. The GHC Junior Heavyweight Championship, whose first champion was Yoshinobu Kanemaru, after defeating Juventud Guerrera in the finals of a tournament, and the GHC Tag Team Championship, whose first champions were Vader and Scorpio after defeating Akitoshi Saito and the reigning GHC Heavyweight Champion at the time, Jun Akiyama. 2001 would also feature many cross-promotional efforts by Pro Wrestling Noah at the time, such as aiding the brand new 01 and aiding the fledgling and soon-to-die FMW. 2002, though, started promising for Noah's future. The roster was increased from hiring free agents over the past 1.5 years. Some of them would even be staples for years to come, like Akitoshi Saito, a New Japan mid-carder from the 90s, Takuma Sano, a former New Japan junior heavyweight that left for the doomed SWF and later the UWF, Muhammad Yone, who was a battle art shooter trained by Yoshiaki Fujiwara and was doing opening matches for All Japan after the Exodus with Noah. There was also some alumni from All Pro Wrestling in the United States, such as Bison Smith, Michael Modest, Donovan Morgan, and then one that really caught people off guard, Masashi Aoyagi. The junior heavyweight division was an amazing spectacle too. The division was a sight to see. Amazing technical prowess from Takashi Sugiura, aerial assaults from Naomichi Marufuji and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, striking force from Kenta, and even some imported luchadors such as Juventud Guerrera and Ricky Marvin. The junior heavyweight scene of Noah was comparable to New Japan's in the 90s, with the variety and quality we saw from the likes of Shinjiro Otani, Koji Kanemoto, and even Jushin Thunder Liger and El Samurai. In All Japan before the Exodus, the junior heavyweight division was a side note that was as neglected as the WWF light heavyweight division in the Attitude Era. While the juniors were making fantastic matches, the mid-card was revitalized with the new acquisitions, the main event scene seemed lackluster. Kenta Kobashi blew out his knees in a tag team match where he and Misawa faced Akiyama and New Japan's Yuji Nagata. Kobashi's injury right after coming back looked bad for the main event scene, and it looked even worse with Misawa's experiment for the GHC heavyweight title picture. Yoshinari Ogawa, one of Misawa's closest friends, a junior heavyweight champion in All Japan, became the heavyweight champion in April. Ogawa's reign as champ is seen as a flop similar to Tadao Yasuda's IWGP heavyweight title reign in New Japan that same year. Ogawa may be a technical wizard in the ring, but the fans found it profound to see a guy that would weigh 200 pounds soaking wet beat Jun Akiyama, and then defended against Akira Taue. He did accommodate by being a cheater during his matches, but cheating in Japan did not get the reaction you want for a heel, like it would in the United States or Mexico. He would lose it to Yoshihiro Takayama in September though, but Takayama would lose the belt to Misawa 2 weeks later. It is unfortunate that Takayama had a short reign, considering his freelance status could have given some prestige to the title in a cross-promotional event in, say, New Japan or 01. Heck, when he was doing Pride, having the champion out there fighting Don Frye would be quite a media spectacle. But in the end, that's probably not a good idea considering what Don Frye did to Takayama. This overall, it felt more like Misawa wanted to have a transitional champion to beat instead of facing his buddy Ogawa. Thankfully for Misawa and Noah, 2003 would be the year they needed. Noah's 2003 started with a sold-out show at the Budokan, where Misawa and New Japan's Masahiro Chono teamed up against Misawa's upcoming challenger for his title, Kenta Kobashi and Akira Taue in the semi-main event, and the GHC Tag Team Champions of Jun Akiyama and Akitoshi Saito defeat 0-1's Shinjiro Otani and Masato Tanaka to end the show. This show excited the crowd and brought everyone to the pre-order line for the next Budokan show. When that show came around on March 1st, it was a magical show. Everyone on the show got over with the crowd. From the elderly veterans opening match, the multi-man tag team matches, the junior heavyweight tag team epic featuring Kenta, Marufuji, Makoto Hashi, and Kanemaru, to the GHC title match in the main event. Misawa and Kobashi brought the crowd to the 90s with their hard-hitting performance that night. Kobashi's win would start Noah's golden age, as his historic reign would bring the promotion to historic draws, matches, and an overall boost in the atmosphere of pro wrestling Noah. Later on in that year in the summer, the GHC Junior Heavyweight Tag Team title was introduced, and it would be donned on Noah's most influential junior heavyweights and rising stars at the time, Naomichi Marufuji and Kenta, where they would defeat an unorthodox team of New Japan's junior heavyweight legend Jushin Liger, an Osaka pro villain and shoot fighter with a 3-3-1 record at the time, Takahiro Murahama. Throughout the rest of the year, Kobashi would defend his title against the likes of Taman Honda, Masahiro Chono, Bison Smith, all in great fashion. But, here we go, September's Budokan show. This was the best show they had that year. The younger talent was showing strides, hungry for the reins to lead Noah to the future. Takeshi Morishima winning the WLW heavyweight title. Kenta and Marufuji's title defense was a barnstorm. Takeshi Sugiura winning the junior heavyweight title, and Kenta Kobashi facing Yuji Nagata in a 30-minute war. 2003 was a year-round high, and 2004 would break the ozone layer in what to see next. 2004's first show of the year was similar to 2003. A wild crowd at the Budokan. The up-and-comers fought their hearts out, and cross-promotional title matches headlined the show. The first one being Kenta and Marufuji retaining their junior tag team titles against New Japan's El Samurai and Wataru Inoue. Misawa and Ogawa taking the tag team titles away from the New Japan villains Hiroshi Tanahashi and Yuji Nagata. These title matches gave the Noah fans major joy, because earlier in the month, at New Japan's Tokyo Dome show, Takashi Sugiura would lose the junior heavyweight title to Jushin Thunder Liger. This loss would be a major event for the first half of the year for Noah, where numerous junior heavyweights would attempt to reclaim the title. The other main event of Noah was Kenta Kobashi himself. From his tag team matches, his build-up to his challengers, and then the challengers matches. But the longer the year went on, the more unstoppable Kobashi looked. But by April 25th, he had his biggest opponent of the year yet, Yoshihiro Takayama. But a week before that event though, a new title was added to Noah. The GHC Hardcore Openweight title, whose first champion would be Jun Akiyama. This title was forgotten for a reason, despite their attempts by having people like Akiyama or even Marufuji holding the title to start it off. This title is basically a pioneer to the Openweight title we see now in New Japan, except without the premier matches. The big stipulation with this title was that smaller challengers had the advantage, that if the match hit the 15-minute time limit, the challenger would win the title. You can even win by countout too. That's all I can really say about this title. It's very forgettable. The April 25th Budokan show sold out and rocked the world. Luchadors Ricky Marvin versus Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Takeshi Rikyo and Kotaro Suzuki as the underdogs facing off against the former ace Jun Akiyama and his sidekick Makoto Hashi. Both tag team champions facing off in a showcase match. Kobashi battling Takayama with every inch of his life to retain the title that he has now held for 13 months. Noah, at this year, was the premier promotion in Japan. And what better way to show this off by going to the largest venue in the Kanto region of Japan, the Tokyo Dome. Before Noah, there have been other promotions that held shows in this colossal venue. But the one promotion that dominated that place was New Japan, who were losing their prestige as the number one for a while at this point due to numerous factors, including the infamous Enochiism philosophy. But back in All Japan before the Noah Exodus, they stayed away from the Dome in comparison. They had only been there a combined 4 times before the Exodus. A cross-promotional event in 1990 featuring New Japan and the WWF, a mass exhibition show featuring 12 other promotions in 1995, and their own hosted events in 1998 and 1999. After watching those 2 latter shows, I can say that the old Dave Meltzer meme of "No Masawa and no Tokyo Dome, the 0 stars," that type of meme, because that little meme about why he didn't give the match 5 stars, it's inaccurate. But I digress. Noah has not touched the Dome, and this had to be perfect to leave an impact. And did they ever? Kenta and Marufuji facing off Takeshi Sugiura and a guest from All Japan, Kendo Kashin, with their junior heavyweight tag team titles on the line. Yoshinobu Kanemaru battling Jushin Thunder Liger to bring the junior heavyweight title back to Noah. Rikio and Morishima trying to get the IWGP tag team titles away from the freelance Forces of Destruction at the time, known simply as Yoshihiro Takayama and Minoru Suzuki. Misawa and Ogawa defend their tag team titles against All Japan's owner and top draw at the time, Keiji Muto, and his Hawaiian buddy Taiokeya, who stayed with All Japan back during the Exodus. At that time, he was known as Manakea Mossman. And the main event, the match that was not only the match of the night, Noah's best match of the year, but the match of the year altogether. Of all of Kenta Kobashi's heavyweight title matches in Pro Wrestling Noah, this match with Jun Akiyama is the main argument people have for explaining why Kenta Kobashi's run as the GHC heavyweight champion was one of the greatest title reigns ever. Words cannot describe this match. Take my word, watch this match. And if you haven't, why? The rest of 2004, though, after this event, felt kind of like cruise control. No title changes. Budokan shows were good, but we did get a new face here and there during this time. Some foreign talent coming in for a cup of coffee here and there, such as Rick Steiner, Low Ki, The Gladiator. Heck, even The Gladiator got a shot at Kobashi for the heavyweight title. And some freelancers such as Shiro Koshinaka would make an appearance here and there. Well, that's the end of 2004. How will 2005 look? Next time on the series, we'll see how this year went and see the beginning of the end of the Golden Age. See their second Tokyo Dome show and see how they react to the future. Thank you for listening.